You can change the world. Now this is very inspiring and very motivational about how exactly do you do this. I was obsessed with this question when I was a kid. I used to love to see the Disney movies and cartoons about superheroes. I would have loved Juana de Juana when I was growing up. But no one actually tells you how to do it. And it's pretty hard because changing the world is not easy. But the way that you change the world is pretty straightforward. It's through innovation. Literally, the definition of innovation, to innovate, is to make changes by introducing new things, new ideas, new concepts. So if it's so straightforward, why doesn't everyone do it? And it's because people have a lot of myths surrounding innovation. An obvious one is that only creative people can do it. I'm not very creative, so that's why I can't innovate, that's why I can't change the world. Well, one of the examples that Tanya mentioned to us earlier, Thomas Edison, probably the greatest inventor in history of the United States, he taught us that it's not about creativity, it's about hustling. It's about trying many, many times and not accepting failure and going for it until you finally get it right. We also think that the only people that can innovate are geniuses, or people who have genius ideas. And then when we think about a genius, we think about Albert Einstein. And even he said that it's not about, that everyone can be a genius. It's not about your idea. Tanya even mentioned that every single one of you is an expert on something. You are the greatest expert on your own experience. So every single one of you has at least one idea that no one else can have because no one else has lived exactly the same life that you have. So this is also a myth. And then the final thing is, okay, Diego, that's really easy because you can code, but I don't know how to code. So if you don't program, if you don't know about technology, you can't innovate. This is also not true. In that definition that we had earlier about innovation, there wasn't a single word about technology, computers, or coding. So what is innovation? How do we break it down? How do we get to start innovating? And it's broken down in three things. First is your attitude. You have to be very positive. You have to not be afraid of failure. And you need to be out there and understand that it's all about the next thing that you have to do, and everything is a learning experience. The next thing is about new ideas. And then the last thing is about action. Because everyone here has a great idea that you once mentioned to a friend, but if you didn't do anything about it, then you're not innovating. Innovating is in putting those ideas into action. So let's start with the first two, attitude and new ideas. How do you get your attitude and how do you get new ideas? Well, the same thing Tanya said. You go and start reading books. You get inspired with TED Talks and you go out there and buy a bunch of books, or you go online and look at blogs and social media and do all this stuff so you can get inspired and you get new ideas and you have the greatest attitude to be an innovator. But then you reach a roadblock. What about now? What do I do with all these ideas and all my positive attitude and all this inspiration that I have? Well, you need to put it into action. And action is not a single thing that you have to do. Action is actually a process. Oh. Action is actually a process. When you're doing something once, it's just an activity. The action that requires innovation is a process of doing constant things. So what you have to do is to create a culture of innovation. It's not only about the single thing that you did once, it's about creating something that you can do continuously. And then the next question could be, well, how do I create a culture of innovation? There are actually many studies on this, and there's a lot of research on this. There's one about the Stanford Design School methodology. That's the one we use at our company. But there's a bunch of stuff you can watch and you can research and you can look online. There's the business model generation from Alexander Osterwalder. There's the Blue Ocean strategy. We have the 10 phases of innovation from the people of IDEO. We have a bunch of research that's telling us how to create innovation and how you can create a culture of doing new things, better things, and changing the world. So, there's all this research. How do you start? I don't have the time to go around and do all this research by myself. I'll just stick to just not changing the world and do whatever I'm doing right now. Well, fortunately, I've done all this research, and I can tell you in a very succinct way what are the things that you need to do if you want to create a culture of innovation. The first thing is that you need to ask why. A lot. People often think that innovating is just making things up, and that's a problem because once they see that there's something wrong with the world and they want to change something, they say, oh, I have an idea, this is what you have to do. And that doesn't work that way because things are done a certain way for a reason. and until we understand why things are done, that's where we can get the insight on why things are not working and how we can improve on them. Sakichi Toyota, which is the founder of Toyota, 100 years ago made the 5 whys process. It's basically you ask why 5 times until you finally get to the root cause of a problem. Let me give you an example. Your car is not working. Why? That's the first one. Well, because the battery is dead. If you want to just jump in and just say, oh, I know, just fix the battery, just get a new battery, that's pretty simple. You would miss on the innovation and you would miss on creating an innovative culture. Toyota said, well, why is your battery not working? Well, it's not working because the alternator is not working. Why is the alternator not working? That's the third one. Well, because the belt is broken. Well, why is the belt broken? Well, the belt is broken because it's already beyond its years. Someone had to fix it. Why didn't someone fix it? Well, because people forgot to fix the belt from the alternator, and that's why the battery died. Well, then we have a place where we can innovate. How do we get customers? How do we get the owners of our cars to regularly do the maintenance to their car? And that's how they build this innovation. The second thing, once we know what we want to do, once we have gone to that root cause analysis and understand where the innovation should go, we need to have a strategy. And when you do a strategy, you need to decide whether you want to be very, very efficient or you want to be effective. And these are 2 separate things. Some people interchange these terms and they're not the same. Well, efficiency is doing things right. And some people, when they're doing something for a strategy, they say, all right, let's have a plan, let's do it as efficient as possible. Let's do things right. But being effective is doing the right thing. Sometimes being effective is way more important than being efficient. And some people, when they decide on being an innovator, they try to do the efficient way. And when the efficient way doesn't work, they say, oh, well, I could have done it a separate way, but that would have taken too long. It doesn't matter how long something takes, as long as you're being effective. When you're effective, then you can try to become efficient. A similar thing happens when people are working and they say, no, I'm pretty busy. The question is, are you being busy or are you being productive? You can be busy the entire week and someone can ask you, so what do you do? Oh, I was doing this stuff in the morning and then the other day I went and did all this other stuff. And in the end, you have this laundry list of things you did. And when I ask you, so what did that accomplish? And you can say, nothing. You can spend the entire week at the office, you can spend the entire week in the classroom, and have that week be as useful as the week before, as useless as the week before, and maybe it just required 1 hour of your undivided attention to be really, really productive. Busy is having something to do. Productive is doing something that adds value. And once you are being very effective and very productive, most people think they're done. And what you actually need to do is create a feedback loop. You need to go out there and get away from your enclosed classroom or your office or your house, and you need to start talking to people, because innovation and changes in the world don't happen in an office. I'm going to show you this picture. This is actually from the Stanford Entrepreneurship Center. When I was a student, I was a TA for one of the classes, and they had this business model dispenser where the towel papers were supposed to be. And what they're trying to say here is that the business model or the business plan doesn't mean anything until you get it out to people, until you go out of the building, until you talk to actual customers, until you talk to actual users who are going to use your new solution, your new idea. And once that happens, everything you've planned before goes away. You need to start all over and start asking why again, and start being effective and start being productive, because the feedback loop is what's gonna keep this from being a repetitive process. And that's exactly the last step, is creating a repetitive process. It doesn't happen once. You can't be an innovator on Mondays. You have to constantly be an innovator. You have to embrace the culture of innovating. And the way that you establish this as a repetitive process is that you have to ask regular questions to yourself. The first question is, what are our results? What have we done? The second question is, well, what's our work in progress? We haven't finished it, but we are on our way to finish it. And then the last question is, what activities are we doing to get our work in progress and transform it into a result. Once you analyze those activities that are going to get you to the work in progress and become a result, you realize that there's always a bottleneck. There's a limiting factor, something that you're doing that's putting everything on hold. When you understand your bottleneck, you can understand where the innovation should come from, and you can start getting your work in progress into results, and that's when you create change. Well, technology helps a lot. How can you use technology? Well, use technology on your bottlenecks. You can use technology to organize your need finding. It might be that your bottleneck is that you're not very well organized, so you can organize information using technology. Another thing you can do is that you can be effective and efficient using technology. You can also be way more productive using technology, at least using computers. We are way more productive than people 100 years ago because of the tools that we have now. And finally, you can reach more people. That step of getting that feedback loop, you can put things online. You can make a YouTube video. You can write an email. You can do a bunch of stuff that you couldn't do if you didn't use technology, that you could only walk to someone else's office or someone else's house to get feedback. Now you can use technology to do all this stuff. So let's talk now about some innovation cultures, because this sounds great, but then how do I apply this? I want a concrete example of how you create an innovation culture. And you can actually do it anywhere. You can do it in your classroom, you can do it at work, you can do it in your family, you can do it at a sports team or an event that you're hosting. The first I'm going to show you is how we have innovation in my company, Ubiqua. Every 2 to 3 months, we sit down and we ask why. We ask why a lot. We challenge all our assumptions. We are constantly trying to understand what has worked and what hasn't. And then we try to come up with new plans and try to make new things so we can continue innovating. We also have a feedback loop. We go out and we see our customers, we see our users use the applications that we are building to see how this is gonna improve their lives, to see how their lives are different, how we have changed how they live because of the solutions that we've built. Another way that you can innovate is in the activities that you're involved. I've been a football coach for now 9 years. I coach the AIP Fighting Owls, and every year we run the same plays, the same concepts. But every year we have a new way of running those concepts. And we sit down with the kids and we tell them, hey, remember last year? We're not going to do the same thing, we're doing something new. But the concepts are the same. It's just we're innovating on new ways that we can improve and take advantage of the resources that we have. Every season is different and we have different kids, so we're going to use those kids and their abilities to improve and innovate in the ways that we run our plays. This year, we started keeping track of the way that we chose plays so that our decision making as coaches was better. We started running this analysis to know the down and the distance, what was the play selection, so that we could understand and ask why some plays were working and some plays were not working. We also meet every Monday, all the coaches, we have a lunch, and we talk about our results, we talk about our work in progress, and then we talk about the activities we're going to run in practice so we can transform those work in progress into results. Finally, I use an innovation culture in my personal life. This is my Cayuco team. I have been a paddler for 3 years now, and every single day we ask ourselves, what can we do different? How can we paddle in a better way? How can we do things better? And innovation and the culture of innovation is not limited to technology. You can use technology to enhance the power of those tools to create an innovation or create an innovative culture. But it's a mindset. And it only takes 3 things: your attitude, new ideas, and action. Don't be afraid of putting your new ideas into action. Don't be afraid when your ideas don't work. Have the attitude and be positive that eventually things will work out if you just keep trying and keep learning. Keep asking why. Keep trying to be effective. Keep trying to be productive. Create a feedback loop. Don't be afraid of being wrong. Ask people questions. Understand how you can get yourself better. And finally, make this a repetitive process. Don't think that you're going to be an innovator the first week of August, and then if that doesn't work, then you're not going to do it, because innovation is a process. What you can do is that you can create an innovation culture, and that is what can change the world. Thank you very much.